showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome back to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. This is episode 90. My name is Chris Hollifield. Welcome to my show. Welcome to the podcast where I showcase locals, professionals, everyday people in Salt Lake City that I believe is making the city what it is today, making it tick, making the city just a little more awesome. Make sure to catch the podcast website at iamsaltlake.com. You can listen to all the previous episodes right there. Got all the links for iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mediocre Radio Network, all at iamsaltlake.com. Today's episode, I sat down with a longtime friend, Carl Ingwell. He originally created an event over last winter. Governor Herbert, We Cannot Breathe. He created an event hoping a few friends would write letters and saying, hey, you know what, we need to make some air quality changes. It kind of blew up and eventually, kind of blew up into a rally with over 300 people showed up on the Capitol steps wanting to make change here with the air quality in Utah. And we sat down, we talked about that and different things that we can do to help make the air quality a little bit better here in the Salt Lake City area, making it better in Utah in general. So often we forget about the air quality during the summer months because we don't see it quite as bad as we do during the winter months. But it still is important to constantly be moving forward and making change with our Utah's air quality. So anyways, like I said, that's this episode. I sit down with Carl Ingwell and so let's jump into that conversation that I had with him as we talk about Utah's air quality and the groups that he is part of. Thank you for listening to another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My favorite part about doing this podcast is bringing you on. I mean, I've known you a long time, Carl. I mean, we've been friends, 13, 14 years probably.
Over a decade, I think.
Over a decade. But I want you to kind of introduce yourself. When in the projects that you're involved in, you've gotten really involved with the air quality here in Utah. Talk a little bit about that and kind of what got you into that and what you're involved in.
Okay.
Let's start there, actually.
Well, yeah, I kind of started this last inversion season. I've always been concerned with the air quality. And I started to realize that everyone complains about it, but no one really does anything about it. And so last winter, I set up this Facebook page. And the intent of the Facebook page was basically to ask all my buddies on a certain day, instead of complaining about it, just to talk to someone about it, contact the governor and let him know that we're kind of fed up with the air quality and we want to see policy change on a governmental level that would change the air quality along the Wasatch Front and in Utah in general. So I set up this Facebook page and I picked a random day. I said, okay, February 6th. Everyone write to the governor and hopefully all my friends will do it and we'll get 20, 30 emails and he'll say, whoa, why am I getting so many emails on February 6th? And so,
and the name of the group, in case people listening were familiar, is Governor Herbert, We Can't Breathe, or We Cannot Breathe.
Yeah.
Right?
So it was the Facebook, I set it up as a Facebook event. The original was titled, Let Governor Herbert Know That We Can't Breathe.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so eventually, Sharice Udell from Utah Moms for Clean Air ran across the Facebook page and she contacted me and said, okay, let's blow this thing up. And I started looking at the Facebook page and all of a sudden we have, 1,000 people invited. And then a day later we have 5,000 people invited. And a week later there were 15,000 people invited to the event. And there were, I think, over 1,500 or so people that said that
they were going to come out to this
that they
event.
were going to come out or write the governor and let the governor know that, just how we feel, basically. And so initially it wasn't set up as a rally on the Capitol steps. It's But the overwhelming response that we got to just this letter writing, it was like, well, why not transition this into a rally on the Capitol steps? And so the day that we were all going to send in our letters, we had this big rally on the Capitol steps where I think around 300 people showed up.
Which is quite a bit of people, really.
It was a good amount.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're familiar at all with the Capitol, you look up at the Capitol and there are those big granite stairs that lead in on the front side. And the stairs were completely full of people, and they came out with signs and wearing, surgical masks and all sorts of fun gas masks, costumes. And it was a good time. We had a couple state representatives that spoke at the rally. I spoke, Charisse from Utah Moms for Clean Air spoke, and then Matt Pacenza from Heal, Utah also spoke. So we had a good lineup of speakers, and then we had collected a bunch of the letters that we hand delivered to the governor's office that day. And
didn't you try to actually present it to him personally, but he did come out or something?
Yeah.
Or was that a different event?
No, that was the same one. I forgot to mention, we did during this whole process, there was another lady, Margie McCloy, who was running a petition, and she had over 8,000 signatures on her petition.
Okay.
Asking the governor to do some stuff to clean up. And so we kind of teamed up together, her and I, to do this rally, and she delivered the petition. She had asked, the governor couldn't, so she had asked Alan Matheson, who is the governor's environmental advisor, and there was some sort of mix-up. I don't exactly know what went on in that chain of emails. Marjorie was under the impression that Alan Matheson was going to be receiving the petition on behalf of the governor, and he was nowhere to be found that day.
Well, of course.
Right.
But so, I mean, was this the first rally that you kind of ever organized?
The first rally, yeah. It wasn't the first, I guess, political thing.
You've always been pretty political, right? You've always kind of been out there and kind of stood behind what you believe in to a degree through different political beliefs through your years of growing up, right? I mean, little or no?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a lot of years of listening to different punk rock and, anti-establishment, Rage Against the Machine and, Bad Religion and all those guys that get you kind of riled up as a teenager. And I just kind of carried that over into my adult years.
So you're up on Capitol Hill. I mean, how did that make you feel? I mean, did you feel like it was a success? Do you feel like overall being up there and having the group of people standing, again, up for what they believe in, do you think that was a successful act?
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we got people's attention.
Okay.
And the one thing I was kind of scared shitless in that, I was going to try and organize. I'd never organized a rally before. So I was worried that I'm going to get up there at whatever time, 11 o'clock or whatever time it was, and there were going to be a smattering of people on the out front of the Capitol building,
all looking at you and saying, "Carl, what do we do next?"
Right. So luckily, I had some people with me that had organized these kind of things before, and luckily it was a red air day, so people were fired up about that. And
wasn't every day a red air day last winter? I mean,
not every day. I mean, every day. It seemed like it, didn't it?
I mean, last winter, seriously, and before we get too far into it, I mean, you even brought up before we started recording, we tend to kind of forget about the bad air quality during the summer months. During the winter months is when we notice it the most. And when we're kind of angry about it and we believe, okay, let's make a change. I mean, is that correct? Do you think people tend to forget about it during the summer months, or don't you think the air quality is that bad?
I've heard that people forget about it over the summer months, but luckily with the group I created after this rally, we've kind of, kept some steam over the summer months. A lot of people think that because the air quality July is typically bad for ozone levels. Right now we have.
And why is that? My own curiosity even.
Oh, gosh.
Or is that too scientific?
Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down into details, but basically sunlight reacts with different pollutants.
I got you. Okay.
Creates ozone. We have some pretty high ozone levels right now. Our air is decently unsafe. I haven't checked it today, but the last time I checked it, I guess it was a few days ago. It was a yellow air quality day, so it's not terrible, but it's not good. Mm-hmm. So, sorry, I lost.
No. So, no. I'll lead you on here. So after the rally, you created. Talk about this other group that you kind of went on to create after the rally.
Yeah. So, I went on to create this group, Governor We Cannot Breathe, after the rally. The name kind of suggests what we do, and that's we're asking our elected officials for policy change and implementing different policy changes that will lead to better air quality. And I do realize that in saying that, I want to just say that I do realize that there are many different things that lead to bad air quality. There's individual choice, governmental policy, et cetera, industry. We're just taking on that one aspect, the policy issues, and we work a lot with different legislators and elected officials, asking them to just create policy that reflects what
kind of policies do you think they need to create? Or is that kind of a tough question?
I mean, for example, just
because I mean that seems like a lot. Like that was one of my biggest things when I saw this. It was like, Governor Herbert, we need to breathe. It's like, well, at the end of the day, he can't stop people from driving. He can't stop people from doing everything they do. At the end of the day, don't you think that's more about individual choice?
Okay, so here's an example that would tie into that policy would affect. There was a bill suggested in the last legislative session. I believe it was Joel Briscoe that proposed this bill to make tracks or make UTA basically free for July and January as a test run to see if it was free during our two worst air quality months, if people would get out of their cars and get into public transportation. And this would set aside tax money to I guess, reimburse UTA for their loss in revenue during those months. The bill ultimately got shot down, but that would be a sort of policy redirecting state money towards something like free transportation for.
Well, why do you think the bill got shot down? Just because it was like, we don't want to produce it, we don't want to pay for all these people to ride on it without them paying, I guess.
Yeah, we live in a fiscally conservative state, and there are probably a jillion reasons why that got shut down by all the R's that line our representatives.
What do you think the biggest thing that we could do in Utah if they're not going to let us ride the bus for free? They're not going to let us ride the tracks for free. What do you think we could do as individuals to help out with air quality?
Well, we can still keep asking to ride the bus and ride the tracks for free. One thing about, and UTA just raised their fares in April to $2.50.
Do you think that deters people from taking the public transportation?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I wrote an op-ed piece for in the Salt Lake Tribune just after they raised their fares, and I basically did all the calculations. And if you're taking a medium length trip, medium length in my definition is 10 to 15 miles, it's probably going to be cheaper to get in your car.
And quicker.
And quicker. And you don't have to deal with all the inconveniences of taking public transportation, because I'll be the first to admit it can be inconvenience. You have to stand out in extreme weathers and wait for a bus. If you have to transfer, you could be waiting outside even longer. A lot of routes don't go where you need to go, or if they do, it'll take hours to get there.
Well, like we were even talking a few days ago about how much it costs to take like the front runner to Utah County, and you take the front runner to Utah County. It's almost like, gosh, if you have a Prius or some, gas effective car, it's more effective, costs less money to drive your car.
Yeah.
And that's not very inviting. That's not very much like, okay, well, what's the incentive? True. The incentive is clean air, but we're all a little selfish.
Right. Yeah, I looked up in 2012, the average new car got something like 23 miles to the gallon.
Wow.
And, that's great, actually, for the auto industry that we're making these improvements in fuel efficiency.
But cars should be getting close to 50.
Sure.
60.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that every car on the road gets 23 miles per gallon. There are numerous old cars out there that probably get closer to 5 or 10 or whatever. But I figure if your car gets anywhere around 15 miles a gallon and you're doing these short trips, it's going to save you money to take your car versus taking tracks or the bus or.
But you should want to. I mean, you should want to take the public transportation, don't you think? I mean, instead of looking at it like, oh, well, it's going to cost me the same amount to drive a car. You should just be like, hey, you know what? I want to help out with the air. I want to help out with the environment. I want to, because I mean, it's a complete cycle. It's not even just the air as much as the environment too. I mean, it's, the land, everything.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with that statement. I mean, convincing you and I of that isn't the hard part. I think convincing, family of 4 would be the hard part. If you have a mom that's trying to get kids to a soccer game, it's going to be hard to convince that mom that she should, load her 4 kids on the bus and take them down to the soccer game at $2.50 a crack. Or another family that needs diapers from the store immediately. Like, how do we convince them to jump on the bus and get to the store versus taking the bus?
So what do we do? I mean, what do we do if that's not the answer? If public transportation isn't the answer?
Well, I do think public transportation could be part of the answer.
Well, yeah. Okay, maybe I worded that wrong.
I think one thing that I've been big into lately is better urban and suburban design, to where we have, maybe neighborhood grocery stores, parks, et cetera, all within walking distance, good bike lanes, all connected to transit. I think, I mention this a lot. I think Sugar House is a prime example of some.
Give an example. I mean, talk a little bit more about that. I mean, because I know we talked about that again a few days ago, but for people listening that aren't familiar with that mentality or that type of lifestyle, especially I think here in Salt Lake, because it is a new concept. Talk a little bit about like what Sugar House is doing. Sure.
Yeah. So Sugar House they took out the old Sugar House, which
rest in peace
to that historic, wonderful development that it was. And I know you and I spent a lot of time over at Sugar House, Blue Cats
right on the corner. Coffee. Yeah. Beautiful place.
And Blue Boutique and Pibbs Exchange. And it was a great place. I think what we're getting now might be better in terms of air pollution, as weird as that sounds, because we have. So
doesn't it make you feel guilty to say it might be better, right?
Right.
You're like, gosh, I'm a bad person for saying that. But anyway, sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Because I mean, when they were tearing down all those places we just mentioned, I was one of the guys fighting tooth and nail, like, no, don't take away my favorite hangouts. But now they're putting in a bunch of different condo units, what are called mixed use developments. So mixed use development is you'll have, say, a high rise, and on the floors above you'll have condo units, and down below you'll have either some sort of grocery store, local grocery store, or maybe a restaurant, maybe a bar downstairs there. So you have these people that live in these buildings, and they can basically meet all their needs within a short distance. You don't really have to get in your car and drive 10 miles to the nearest Costco. You can get your diapers or your beer or whatever it is you want to get within walking distance of your house. You can also get to different entertainment, movie theaters, restaurants, bars within walking distance from your house. And also in Sugar House, with them putting in the new trolley line, you're going to have convenient access from those condos to public transit. So you have many different ways. They call it multimodal transportation options. So you could theoretically walk out of your condo, walk to the Smiths down the street or the Whole Foods right next to you, get your groceries, You could ride your bike to different places, ride your bike down to Sugar House Pub, or ride your bike over to Salt Lake Pizza and Pasta for some dinner, or ride your bike over to the Dollar Theater if you wanted. And then you could jump on public transit, and that would connect you to tracks or different bus lines. And last but not least, if you needed to, you could get in your car and go somewhere. But I think that setting up development where a car is the least
needed necessity.
Yeah, least needed.
Has things like this been shown successful though, like in other cities, setting up because I'm sure they've modeled them after other big cities. Has stuff like this where a grocery store is within walking distance and all these different things right by you? Do they find that people don't drive that 10 minutes to go to another grocery store or something like? Do you find people stay in their own little communities then?
There have been a number of studies that show that the easier that you make it to drive, the more likely you are to drive. You have, for example, we're working on a project right now with the West Davis Corridor, which is a new freeway that UDOT's proposing to put in West Davis County. So say you live in Kaysville, or not Kaysville. Say you live in Layton, and you have a Smith's right down the road, and you normally drive maybe 2 miles or to the Smiths, or maybe the Smiths is right around the corner and you usually walk to the Smiths. And then they build this freeway. It's easy. It's convenient to get on. And 10 miles down the road off a freeway exit is a Costco. Well, so now people are saying, well, I can jump on this freeway and be to this Costco in 5 minutes, or I can go to this Smith's that's right around the corner from my house. Well, we all know that, Costco has some things that Smith's doesn't have to offer. They got
killer deals, man.
The killer deals, et cetera. And so, a lot of people in that situation would be opting to jump on that freeway and drive to that Costco, which increases their amount of trips that they take in a car, and it increases the number of miles that they drive in those trips. Those are vehicle miles traveled. And so I think a good example of a city where this works is New York City. You hear of all these stories, and New York City is a little different in that it's this long, narrow strip of land. We don't have that here, but think of all the people in New York City that don't even own a car. It's so inconvenient to own a car in New York City, and it's so convenient to get on their public transportation system and get places that people say, why bother? What's the point? So we could do a few different things here in Salt Lake where we make it, and this is the part people hate.
Make it more inconvenient.
Making it more inconvenient to drive. No one wants to be inconvenienced more than they already are.
Well, that's always something I was happy about with Salt Lake, though, is how you don't get a lot of traffic. I can get to work really quick. It's an easy place to get around in a car. That's a hard battle to fight because it is so easy to get around in a car.
Right, and I think that's going to be a battle that needs to be fought right now in Salt Lake and on a global scale too, with climate change. We have our air pollution problems here, and we have I don't want to say looming threat because it's a real threat right now, but the threat of climate change, changing our atmosphere, weather patterns, et cetera, to break the addiction from fossil fuels and automobiles. We need to do things that make it easier to not use cars, basically.
To ride the bikes.
I don't want to say make it harder to use cars. How about, let's say, to make it easier to not use cars?
I like that. Because it's a dream of mine to get rid of the car. Mm-hmm. I hate it. You spend all this money, you get your payments, your insurance, everything, and it's screwing up the earth that we live on. But especially like in Utah's winters, it's like, gosh, it's so difficult to get around if you don't have a car.
Right.
And, I don't know how they would really solve that unless you had a bus stop in front of every person's house. I mean, you're still going to have to bundle up and get out there and wait for the bus, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's probably a loaded question, and Carl doesn't know, how to answer that. I apologize, but it is. It's a battle. I mean, the summer months is great, but
right.
what do you do in the winter?
Well, from experience, and I know a lot of people won't buy into this theory, but from experience, it gets easier as you go. It's not, it's 100 degrees out right now. And, it's hard to fathom standing out in a blizzard right now, waiting for a bus for 15 minutes. But it does get easy. You get used to it. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. I would argue standing outside in 100-degree weather right now can be just as miserable as standing out in a snowstorm. It's all perspective, I guess.
True.
But there are different things that we could do, make more sheltered bus stops so people aren't standing out in rain or snow waiting for the bus. They have a roof over their head to kind of protect them from the elements, and walls on 3 sides to protect them from the winds. And if we had different buses that ran on different schedules, increased buses during peak hours being the morning commute and the afternoon commute. If we had, say, 5 to 10 minute waits on those buses rather than 15 to 30 minute waits on those popular routes, then we could be moving people around a lot faster. People wouldn't have to stand out in the cold for long periods of time. And that's,
well, plus it even goes back to what you were saying with the urban living, where if your places that you need to go to are close enough, you can get there quickly. The grocery store or the bar, or if you need diapers for your kid, if they're a block down the road, you can just walk there really quickly, even in the wintertime.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough. The last 2 places I lived in, the last place I lived in, I lived off of 9th East and 21st South, just right there by that Smith's. So walking to the Smith's wasn't a problem for me. Now I live just in the 9th and 9th area, so we have the Smith's right there within walking distance. If we wanted to stretch it, we could easily walk over the Whole Foods in Trolley Square. And we have different restaurants and whatnot, and we're pretty close to tracks as well. We're 3-4 blocks from tracks, so we can go jump on the tracks pretty easily as well. A lot of people don't have it that easily, and that's where city planning comes in. If we kind of build, this is another hard sell in this, is that a lot of people like the suburban lifestyle. They like big yards. They like, these
big houses, big yards, everything.
And they don't mind the commute and the urban sprawl and all that big houses and big yards come with. So it's a hard sell to say that I think one of the solutions would be to build more dense housing where you're packing people in tighter, where a lot more people are living in city centers, where you're close to all this, groceries and entertainment and bars and whatnot. So you're saying get out of the South Jordans, the West Jordans, move more downtown, realistically. Well, yes, or what we could do is build more downtown Salt Lake, like city centers in West Jordan and Sandy and places like that, to where people are living more kind of clustered, I guess. Like all those cities should have a little downtown, I guess, more or less.
Yeah, and Salt Lake downtown.
Right, and I think if people were more localized to those kind of, I guess, city centers in the suburbs, maybe they wouldn't have to drive to another suburb to meet their needs.
I gotcha. What do you say when somebody says, "Well, you know what? It doesn't matter anyways. One person can't make a difference." During my years of activism, or being an activist and all that was the biggest thing you always hear. Well, I'm not going to make a difference anyways.
Well, that's one of the ones I hate. There are 2 comments that I really hate. Maybe we'll get into the second one later.
Well, share what they are.
So the one I hate is that I'm just one person. I'm not going to make a difference. And I don't believe that's true. I believe that in doing this work, I believe I have been making a difference. I believe that, I've inspired other people to kind of make the same changes and make the same difference that I'm making. And so if I, inspire, say, 5 other people to go out and do the same things, and then those 5 people inspire 5 other people, that's 25 people, then you kind of have a snowball effect going on. And I mean, this air quality stuff, we're not going to gain much traction without large cultural change. And cultural change can start with one person. It can start with 5 people, with a small group of people. It can start with, just think if at one Mormon church in Utah, someone got up and started saying, we should all walk to church next week instead of driving. These stake centers are set up. There's one every block,
But their parking lots are always so full.
Right.
Ridiculous, right?
Right. And so what if one church leader got up and said, okay, everyone walk to church next Sunday. And, the benefits would be small, one church, a few people walking to church. But what if every church did that? What if some people from the other church thought, Elder Jones over at this church asked the congregation. I don't know if that's the right word.
I believe so.
Church.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
So, what if another church is like, wow, Elder Jones asked his congregation to do this. I'm going to do the same thing. And then, other churches start catching on. And then all of a sudden you have every church in the state of Utah, unrealistic as that sounds, but, then you have every church in the state of Utah and everyone's walking to church instead of driving their car the 3 blocks to get to church. I mean, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't just say, I'm not going to make a difference and not do anything, because if you do that, then it's true. You won't accomplish anything.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Talk about, before we started hitting record, I want to make sure we get into this before we forget about it. You were talking about how a group you're involved with is collecting stories, is going to start collecting stories. People's stories about air quality or something. Talk a little bit about that, because I know I'm butchering whatever it is that you were talking about.
Yeah, sure. So this ties into the group, Governor, We Cannot Breathe, and talking to our elected officials about policy change. So, I've in doing my air quality work, you run across all these stories about, I have a friend whose grandparents decided that they just couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't take the air pollution along the Wasatch Front, and they're getting up there in age where, something like air quality can really start affecting your health. And, rather than wait around for this change that they didn't see coming, they thought it would be more beneficial to basically become an environmental refugee and move out of the state, just uproot from their family and friends and communities and just move out of state. And when you hear those stories, it's rather heartbreaking. And when you hear these stories about people that wish they could move because they have a chronic illness, asthma, or someone that gets cancer that believes that their lung cancer was caused by air quality.
And that's sad to think I have to move out of Utah because it's so bad. You know what I mean? That's the worst part, to think, gosh, we're out of Utah. Our air should be great here. Right. Anyway, sorry.
Right. I mean, just for a minute, put yourself in that position.
Yeah. Okay. Slowly.
So just say, I can't trust my own government to make these policy changes. I can't trust them to do what is necessary, and I can't trust my fellow community members to do what is necessary to improve our air quality. I'm going to leave my family, leave my friends, leave this whole life that I've set up for myself and get the hell out of here. That takes a lot. And it's crazy to think that not just a few people, but a large number of people have come to that decision. Things aren't going to change. I'm going to leave. And so what we're doing is we've heard enough of these stories over the years. It's like, well, why not collect these stories? Someone's not listening to these stories. So we're collecting these stories and we're putting them together in what we're calling a scrapbook. You can send in your picture, a picture of your family, with the stories, and we'll kind of neatly put them together in this, what's going to hopefully be a very large PDF file.
Oh, so they're going to be written out, not audio stories. They're going to be more written stories, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay,
So written stories. We're going to collect these in our scrapbook. Mm-hmm. And we're going to collect these stories for about the next 6 months. There are two categories of stories. The one category is you're a person that's moved out of the state of Utah because the air quality was so terrible and you just couldn't wait any longer. And the other category is I want to move out of Utah because the air quality is so horrible. I think that, life for me would be better elsewhere. I'm strongly considering moving. So we're taking these stories. If you've moved and you want to submit a story about how you came to the decision to move, why you came to that decision, why you think it would be better to move out of state rather than tough it out, I guess. We're collecting those stories, and we're also collecting stories of people that think it would be better to get out of here now while they have the chance. So we're going to compile all those stories for the next 6 months or so. And then once we get a large number of stories, we're going to put them together artistically, I guess, in this scrapbook. And we're going to present those during next winter's inversion season. We're going to present those to all of our elected officials, the legislators and our governor, and say, this is what the air quality is causing. We can step up and take some leadership roles here and really try and tackle this issue and kind of right the ship so people aren't having to move out of our state, or we can just let this continue as it is and we'll get 10,000 more of these stories.
Do you think anybody at Capitol Hill is listening? I mean, do you think they're listening at all? Because, it makes me believe they're not. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I think we're gaining ground. I think, and I was talking about this today, I think a paradigm shift is coming. Mm-hmm. We're gaining ground. A lot of people in Salt Lake are mad enough. I think about there's this old theory. I forget who came up with it. It's called the 5% rule. Mm-hmm. And it basically states that if 5% of the people are angry enough, then their government can't do things contrary to what they're fighting for. And I think we're quickly approaching that, and that well over 5% of people in Utah are mad enough about the air quality and willing to stand up for air quality that it's not a matter, it won't be a matter of are they listening? It'll be a matter of they have to listen.
They have no choice.
These people will start getting elected out, these boot off stage, basically. And hopefully we're coming to that point where people are getting kind of that worked up about air quality, where our elected officials really aren't going to have a choice anymore. It's either you act on air quality or we'll put someone else in there that will.
Do you think, where do you see Utah saying even something as little as 5 years if we don't do something about the air quality? Or is that kind of a loaded question?
Yeah, it's hard to project into the future what might happen. There are, a lot of variables that come into play. We definitely could get worse. I don't see us getting
better if we don't do anything.
If we don't do anything, yeah, we're not going to get better. It's hard to say if it would get worse or not. Right now we're in what's called non-attainment with the EPA, and the EPA has basically stated that our air quality is not up to their standards and that we have to do something to fix it. So we have a certain time frame to basically fix it, which it seems as if we've been dragging our feet on that.
It has.
So it's hard to say whether things will get worse or get better. There are definitely some things that could make it worse. different refinery expansions definitely could make it worse. Any sort of increase in industry, any sort of increase in driving rates, stuff like that could theoretically make it worse. But it's hard to project those numbers into the future. I think if we keep going down the road that we're going down, if we allow the refineries to expand, if we allow a new freeway to be built, which increases vehicle miles traveled and increases car trips, then yeah, we could get worse. So we have to be, I guess, making good decisions now.
For the future.
For the future, right.
Absolutely. On a positive note, I always bring people on and I'm always asking them, what do you like about Salt Lake City in general? Obviously we kind of, the air quality is a bummer and bad and obvious, but what does Carl like? What do you like about living in Salt Lake?
Good question. I love the access to the mountains. I love getting out and hiking and just being out in nature. I love the fact that, and I probably shouldn't say this because I've just harped on driving for the last 30 minutes, but I like the fact that you can jump in your car and get to, 5 different national parks and, 5 or 6 different national monuments within a 3-4 hour drive. It's just.
But those are times when a car isn't a horrible thing, if you use them for that type of thing, for a trip or something, because you're not going to those national parks every day.
Right.
Well, maybe Carl is, but.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah, that's living the dream, I guess. I don't think we're going to get rid of the car tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're not. And I think by cutting down on car use, we could make a pretty large impact. So if you're just going up in the canyon, say once a week, and you're cutting out all the trips to the store and trips to the restaurant and stuff like that in the meantime, then it's all a matter of how long you drive and how often you drive.
Yeah.
So if you're cutting out those trips,
the little trips.
Yeah. I mean, you could have an overall positive impact. No, like I said, we're not getting rid of the car tomorrow, and
we probably never will.
Yeah, probably.
It'll always be there.
Probably not.
Do you have any favorite local restaurants you like to eat? I always get listeners that are new in town or something like that. Recommendations, Carl recommendations, places to eat.
Yeah, sure. I love going out to eat. So
I know you do. So what are some of your recommendations?
One place I've been enjoying a lot lately is Frisch. It's a little vegan eatery, a small vegan eatery on 800 South and 500 East. Even if you don't like vegan food, their food is delicious. So yeah. Even if you're not a vegan, if you want to test out some vegan food for a day, I highly recommend that.
And it's not bad priced either.
No, it's very affordably priced.
Yeah.
They have different drink options. They have daily specials every day. So,
yeah.
You'll never get sick of eating the same old thing. Yeah. Great restaurant. Another place I've been enjoying is, Oh My. It's a little Vietnamese place.
Don't know if I've been there. No.
I can't remember the exact address. It's around 33rd and State Street. Very inexpensive, and the food is delicious. I love their they have a lemongrass bean curd sandwich that I really enjoy, and it's just so you have your lemongrass flavor, and then it has a little kick to it. They put jalapenos on the sandwich, and I think it's probably around a foot-long sandwich, and it's like $4. So
I'll have to go try it out.
Yeah, you can't beat that. And then I've always been a big breakfast place, so a big breakfast place guy. So I'll go ahead and plug Blue Plate Diner.
Great place to eat food.
Love Blue Plate Diner. Yeah, and if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, they have a lot of vegan and vegetarian options, and they have some good meat options as well if you wanted to go that route.
Oh, awesome! I'm always curious. Local spots. I don't think the local restaurants get as much attention that they deserve. So how can people get in touch with you, Carl? I mean, if people want to join up, become active in helping out with your projects, websites, Facebooks. I mean, give any of that information. And I always get them on the show notes on the website as well. But go ahead and how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. So one way, and I want to plug the stories again. If you do have
the stories, how people can get those stories to you.
Yeah. If you do have any stories and would like to submit a story, you can submit those directly to me, carlingwell@gmail.com. That's CarlIngwell@gmail.com. Feel free to submit any stories, picture or not. If you're uncomfortable with the picture, leave it out. If you'd like to attach a picture, please do. Just email me directly, or anytime you wanted to volunteer or help out with any of our groups, feel free to contact me there. We also have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/groups/We Cannot Breathe.
And again, I'll get that link on the website so people, if they're driving, can't write that down or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the Facebook page is one of the good ways to connect with us. If you don't necessarily want to get involved, but you want to stay in touch with what's going on with our group, or we have a lot of people that will post articles and have some great air quality discussions on that page. So if you wanted to be a part of any discussions or just basically keep in the loop, then it would be good to jump over and join that Facebook page. Unfortunately, for non-Facebook users right now, we don't have anything. We don't have a website set up.
And if you don't have a Facebook, now's your excuse to get one.
Right. Go out and get a Facebook to connect with us. But yeah, there will be a website in the future. It's being worked on now. I wish we had it up by the time we talked, so people could go and check that out. But
people are going to be listening to this for months to come, and I appreciate you coming on. Anything else you want to mention, Carl, before we close out? I mean, I think I think we need to wake up. Like we said, one person can make a difference. The air quality is important. I mean, we want to get people to move here, not move away. So
right. I think one last thing I can say, and just touching on the fact that individuals can make a difference, is I read a scientific article a while ago they called it the behavioral wedge, and it was just basic small steps that you can make in your lifestyle and this article was about climate change. So it was small steps that you could easily make in your day-to-day life that would have collectively would have a big impact on climate change. So let's not kid ourselves. Climate change and air pollution they're not the same issue, but they're pretty darn similar. So there are a lot of small steps that you can take in your daily lives that will have a positive influence on air quality here in Salt Lake City. We're working on an outreach program to go out into the community and do some fun kind of interactive presentations about these small changes that people could make to just make our air more breathable here. I guess my suggestion would be to figure out some things that you can do that wouldn't be a huge inconvenience to your lifestyle or to you, and just start doing that one thing and see how it works out. And if it works out well, start doing another thing and start doing another thing, and
pretty soon you'll be doing a bunch of things.
Pretty soon you'll be doing a bunch of things, and maybe pretty soon everyone will be doing those same things, and maybe one day we won't have the highest autism rates in the country, and we won't have air pollution spikes that Brian Mensch, the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, has called a public emergency. And, maybe people won't have to worry about exercising outside in July and January, and it'll just be a better place to live all around. And that's what we're kind of looking for, because to get back to your question about Salt Lake City and favorite things about Salt Lake City, I mean, this is an amazing place to live, and we're fortunate enough to live in an amazing place, and it could be that much more amazing if we all just had better air to breathe.
And that seems like a good place to end it. So thank you so much, Carl.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What a great conversation that I had there with Carl. Thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about your groups, the events, what your group is doing, collecting stories. I'm going to put all the links at iamsaltlake.com/episode 90. That way you can join the Facebook group, Governor We Cannot Breathe, get involved, help with the air quality here in Utah, and make a difference. Anyways, thank you for listening to episode 90 of the podcast. Remember, iamsaltlake.com is a website. It's got all the information to get in touch with me. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We're also on the Mediocre Radio Network. The voicemail for the podcast, 385-202-5926. Give me a call. Let me know what you think of the show. If you have any events you want to have mentioned on the show, I'd love to play them on a future episode. Again, that's 385-202-5926. I'm here Monday and Thursday with a brand new episode, and so make sure you check them out. I got some great interviews coming up and some great things happening 10 episodes away from episode 100. And so I want to thank you for your support, for your feedback, for your emails, for your retweets, for your posts on Facebook. All of that is very much appreciated. So thank you for all of you that have shown support of the podcast. I wouldn't have made it this far, almost to my 1-year mark as well. So it's a lot of neat stuff coming up for the I Am Salt Lake podcast. So with that being said, my name is Chris Hollifield. This is the I Am Salt Lake podcast, and I'll be back again on Monday with a brand new episode showcasing someone or something in Salt Lake City, Utah.